nice seeing you. I'm happy to see so many people from so many countries. I hope that you will enjoy the webinar. So in the beginning, just very briefly, I would like to present you a little bit our project and tell you why you are participating in this webinar today. So my name is Irina, and I work for Solidarité Jeunesse, a French organization, where we organize a lot of short and long-term volunteering projects. And we also work a lot with teenagers, which is very important for our organization, because we believe that, the sooner we start being engaged in volunteering activities, the better it's going to shape our minds and perception about the world, about the discrimination and stereotypes, and we can contribute to peace. So we were thinking in Solidarité Jeunesse how we could promote more teenager activities and projects, work camps, exchanges, and we came up with an idea of creating this big Key Action 2 project, which is financed by the European Commission. And the project is called GoTeens, which stands for Go with Teenagers Engagement and Empowerment through Networking. In terms of this project, we have 8 different partners. 5 of them are coming from the European continent. We have Italy, Estonia, Spain, France, and Greece. And we also have 3 partners coming from the other continents. We have a Canadian partner, we have an Indian partner, and we have a Japanese partner. So we are all partner organizations in this project, and all together we are working on it. And it's a project that will last 2 years, and the main objective is to support the quality development of youth work by elaborating and formalizing tools and improving competence to prepare and implement and of course evaluate international projects for teenagers. So with this project, we want to reinforce the capacity of our partner organizations to organize international projects for teenagers and to provide youth workers, camp leaders, also you, with quality online and offline tools to lead the international activities for teenagers. So we are going to implement 3 webinars, and this is the first one on conflict management, and there are going to be 2 more which will focus on teenage pedagogy and working with teenagers in intercultural context. You will all be invited to participate in the other 2 webinars. So please feel free to contact me by email if you have any question. I will not take much more of your time because you're here to talk about and to listen about conflict resolution. So enjoy.
And I am back. Thank you, Irina. So now a few words about me. So my name is Laetitia Barbry, and the reason why I'm providing this webinar is I've been cooperating with, I'm a freelance trainer, facilitator, and conflict mediator, and I've been participating and cooperating with Solidarité Jeunesse for some years now. As a trainer, both on national level, but also international level, on conflict management tools, but also on mediation and on nonviolent communication. The reason why I'm here as well today for this webinar is because I just finished doing a project with Solidarité Jeunesse that focused on conflict management, and we transformed a lot of the tools that I transmit during the training, we transform them into online MOOC. So today during this webinar, we will focus on 2 elements, which is the use of participatory video and mediation, which is the 2 elements I choose to share today with you, knowing that we had only 1 hour and it had to be the thing that can be the more useful as camp leader and as a coordinator of work camps. So we'll share that, but to share that, I will use the result of this Be the Change project, the MOOC that we have done, so that you can later use this online tool to provide, to share it with the people you're working with. So I will use a lot this platform, Be the Change. So that was the name of the project. And we have this project, this platform, e-learning Solidarité Jeunesse. After this webinar, you can write to this platform to ask to have access yourself. So it's a self-paced course, so you can do it at your own rhythm. And a lot of the things that I will share are on this platform as well. So a few words about the Be the Change project, because as I will use it, I want you to know a bit more where it came from. So the idea behind the Be the Change project was that I work on conflict management. I train people in conflict management using a lot non-formal education method and sociocratic approach. And many years ago, I worked with someone that used theater, and we realized by combining our approach, we were touching more people, making real change, because some people were more sensitive to some of the tools that I were using. Some people were more sensitive to the theater approach. So the idea behind Being the Change was to gather a team of people that had different specialties. So we had Roy and Maria that work with participatory video, Maria that work with theater, Chaz and Michaelina that comes from the University of Coventry, and Simon, who is today facilitating the chat, who is the person that is support us into transforming what we do on human live training into online learning. So that was the approach. So this was a multi-approach. That was the idea, to gather all our way to work with conflict, to put it together, to try to give some tools that could tackle the topic from different angles. And this is what the result was about. It was also a participatory project in a sense that the MOOC that I will use today and that I will show you was done by the participant. We had 2 trainings, live trainings, where we show our method, and then the participant of this training transformed what we had taught them into online learning. So the platform that I will show you was actually done by the participants. So let's move on with this. I'm showing back. So basically today for this hour, I will use this MOOC to share with you 2 main elements, which are going to be the participatory video, because I think it's something that can be useful on WordCamp working with teenagers, and also introducing you some tips of mediation. But before doing that, I'm going to take a bit of time to know who you are and what you came here for. So we are going to launch first a quick survey, a poll that I'm inviting you to answer. So as you can see, the majority of you are camp leader and want tips on handling conflicts. Okay, great. Some people are here because the organization encouraged them to. Well, let's hope we are gonna meet the expectation of the person and the organizations. We have people keen on new experiences. Well, that's a new one for me as well. So I'm part of the people keen on new experiences. And we have another, maybe the reason will be indicated in the chat. Yes, want to know more about teenage camp and their special condition. On this precise point, I want to say that this was spread on shared on the email that you received for the invitation. What I'm going to share are tips that can be both for teenagers and for adults, in the meaning that I am not specialized in teenager approach. I choose some elements that I thought were more appropriate for the teenage WordCamps, but this is not going to be the moment where we really speak about the teenager WordCamp. This is something you will do more on the next webinar that will be really focusing on interculturality for teenagers. Oops. And I'm stopping sharing the results. And we wanted to know a bit more about you and to make you participate a bit more. So I'm inviting you now to go on the chat. Simon just shared a link to something called menti.com. If you have a smartphone, it's easier to do it on a smartphone. So what you need to do is to go on this menti.com and use the code that you can see on the top, on the first line of the share of the screen, 552716. I believe Simon already put in the chat the link to this Menti and the code. And we have 2 questions for you. It's also a moment for you to share knowledge you have, because in this webinar, as you are many people, it is planned that I will be doing most of the talking, but it's also, you can use the chat if you want to share information. So that's why I'm inviting you to answer to the question, what tools or technique have you already used to tackle conflicts on WordCamp? So if you share your answer that, then you can use the chat to develop a bit more if you want to ask questions to each other or to explain more a technique. I believe you're able to follow what I'm saying and write on the chat to exchange with each other. So I'm encouraging you to go on the Menti. If you have a problem, write on the chat. Okay. Do not hesitate to share any little tips, details. We have a lot about communication. Communication technique, transparent communication, discussions. Also have anonymous box or place, a place to unload, I guess. Daily group meeting. Time. Explanation, face-to-face discussion. Give time for calming down before discussing the problem. I've personally already used sharing a hot chocolate together, something warm and sweet. Face-to-face discussion, sitting down and talking. So now, second question, when it comes to conflict during a work camp, do you think that conflict should be managed, prevented, resolved, transformed, ignored? Okay, so when it comes to conflict to work camp, so a lot of you already answered this question in the survey that we did before. So we have people that think that it should be resolved in majority, managed for 6 people, transformed for 4, prevented for 1. Nobody here believes they should be ignored, which I guess we all agreed on. I mean, it is very difficult to ignore a conflict on a work camp. So about that point, I wanted to add something. If I ask this question, it's not anecdotic question because how to say that there is different way of tackling conflict and of seeing the conflict situation. And in the research, we talk a lot about conflict management, prevention, resolution, or transformation. When I started as a trainer, I firstly called my conflict training conflict resolution. And then by going deeper, I realized that the way you see the conflict and the approach to tackle it is also influenced by the way you see conflict. And in summarizing, the conflict resolution is more a view that is shared at people that see conflict rather as something negative that need to be resolved. That's why I today believe and choose to speak about conflict management, because in the paradigm that we see conflict that should be managed, it's the idea that a conflict in itself is not a positive or a negative thing. It's rather a neutral thing. It's what we do with it that influence the situation and make it a positive outcome or a negative outcome. This is why I personally speak about conflict management. About conflict prevention, yes, we will talk about some tools that tackle that, but conflict prevention is mainly seen when we see conflict as a negative aspect that should be avoided. Here in the work camp situation, and I believe this is shared by most of the organizations that are here, is this idea that the same way that through encountering another culture, you discover more about your own culture, the idea is that through tackling the conflict and trying to manage them, we support each other in learning more about what are the differences. Of course, the transformation is the ground. The idea that through a conflict we can be transformed is what we are aiming at. I personally speak more about conflict management because I'm aware that conflict transformation takes a lot of time, takes a lot of skills. It can happen that a conflict during a work camp become a transformation on a deep level, but here I will more talk about conflict management. And this is the moment I'm going to share with you a first small, not a small, a first tool, technique that I have used on trainings and that I think could be useful for your WordCamps. So I'm going to share it by showing you in the same time this tool on the platform. So I'm sharing with you the platform here. I don't know if some of you are familiar with what's called the TKI. It's the Thomas and Killman instrument. Here, it's how do you call this? It's a graphic where you have a line that goes horizontally and a vertically. It's a graphic that is showing the different way we can have in tackling a conflict. So you can see like the avoiding represented by an ostrich. You will see when you will go on the platform yourself, if you click on the cross, you have more information and you have an example that was done by the participant of the training. Anyway, what I'm doing that is on a WordCamp for the people that actually want to talk about prevention. The first thing that happens is usually conflict is not something we have learned to tackle. Very few, even less when we are on a teenager WordCamps. Conflict is something that we are left with the examples of how the people around us handle the conflict, and also our own personal preferences and our own personal, let's say, comfort zone with this situation. So this is an exercise I very often do at the beginning of the trainings, and I encourage you on the WordCamps, is I place people in pair and I give them an object in between them, and I invite them to simulate the fact that this object, they are both sure that this is their object. So you can put a phone, a pen, the object doesn't matter. And you give the pair 5 minutes to gain the object. So very funny thing happens. If you have a group, you have different pair, and you can see by observing that some people will just take the object and start running around. Some people will start negotiating, discussing. Some people will just say, I don't care about the phone, I already have one. So what's interesting about the exercise is that on the second moment, once it's finished, there is a bit of a funny moment where you make the turn of the older pair asking who has the object now, what technique did they use to get it, and it's very funny because there are different techniques and it's relaxing and people relax about it. And then this is the moment that really you explain that what we did is we put them in a situation of conflict. First, a very simple conflict. We are both sure we are right. They were both sure the object is there. So through this situation, through this simulation, we kind of let pop out the different way we have of reacting to conflict. So for example, avoiding will be the pair that people say, no, it's okay, you can take the object. I don't mind the object. You can take it. I don't need it. I mean, an object, I don't see the object. Compromising will be the people that technically propose that they will share the smartphone 1 week each, 1 week the other. Then you have the accommodating technique, who are the people that just gave it to the other. It makes you happy, take it. Competing will be the example of people that took the object and run around. And what is interesting about that is to illustrate the fact that even if this was a fake situation, yes, the object in the middle is not important to them. What's interesting is that all these reactions are different reactions we can have in handling a conflict situation. And the way we choose which way we react is based on a lot of paradigm, a lot of elements. One of these elements is our own personal preference. There are people that find it more comfortable to be accommodating, to please the other, to say, no, go for it. Whether it is from the cultural reference or it's a personal choice. I, for example, have a lot of trouble in avoiding situation. Once I see there is something, it's very difficult for me to avoid it. So there is a situation, there is a point about what is our own personal preference. But there is also a situation, and this is what we try to develop here, is all this reaction that can happen and can be, let's say, a toolbox. Because in some situation, we should better avoid, because maybe we don't know all the elements. Maybe we are not in a situation where we can tackle the discussion at this moment. So this is also a way of managing conflict at this moment. And the other reading that is very interesting to do with the people in the WordCamp is also what's written on the side. It's basically when we are on avoiding and accommodating, this is the moment where we are more orientated toward the relation. So when you see someone that is actually trying to accommodate, say, no, it's okay, you can take it, you can take it. For some people, it can be very annoying. But another way to read that is to explain that when someone tells you, no, you can take it, it's yours, it's actually someone that tried to work on the relation with the person. The focus, meaning the object of the conflict, is not so much important for him or for her. What's more important is the relation. And the other way around, where we see someone that really fight it off, really wants the object or the thing they need, and they take it by force, let's say. Another way of reading it is to realize that for this person, this situation is very important. So I wanted to share this exercise because it is something very simple that can be done at the beginning of a work camp that, yes, can be a bit of prevention, because it will make people more comfortable with the way that there is many ways to react to conflict. Also realize that even if it was a fake situation, we very often choose a reaction that is close to what we would do as well. And the third reading is also to realize if during the work camp at some point someone really fights it off about something and really want it, then it makes the person realize this topic is very important for this person. If she's screaming about it and arguing and doesn't want to let it go, then it tells me, it gives me a clear indication, this is very important for this person. And it's much easier to tackle a conflict when we realize it's very important for this person than when we focus just on the topic. So that was the first tool I wanted to share with you. And as I said, this is something you can find on the MOOC to have the graphics so that you can explain it later to other people. So now let's move on to another tool that I wanted to share with you. It's the participatory video. So participatory video is what Roy and Maria, the two trainers that I've shown you, have been working on for a long time. And during this Be the Change project, I co-run a training with them where we actually use participatory video as a tool for the participant. In a few minutes, I will show you the video that was created by the participants. But for the moment, I wanted to give you a concrete example of how participatory video can be used with teenagers on a work camp situation as well. So first, for people who say like the technique participatory video request a lot of material, no, here what you're gonna see was filmed with a mobile phone. When they work with participatory video, we are talking about filming with mobile phone, very basic filming, sometimes even just screenshots. So Roy and Maria use participatory video in a lot of settings, and they've been recently called in a class where there was a huge conflict. It's a class in a preparatory school where there was a conflict and there were basically two groups. So they came as the work as participatory video to use the participatory video as a tool to tackle the conflict, but also as a tool to recreate a group dynamic. So how they did it, and this is what I wanted to share with you for the work camp, they basically choose to acknowledge the fact that there were two groups in this class. So they divide the participant into two groups and make them work separately for the moment, at the first, about the positive aspect. So this was with teenagers, and this was about the value. They had different way of seeing how they should be in the class and all this. So they make them focus on the positive aspect. So they make them think about what are the positive element. I mean, what is a good day for me? What should happen if I have a good day? What should be happening in this? So they divide them in two groups. The two groups focused on what is a good day to me, and then they share the result. And that was the first element to realize that even if they were in a big conflict, most of the answers were similar. So it was a first element to kind of make them realize we kind of have the similar ideas. Based on that, they decide to divide them into three groups because they realized that some of the people that were in the two, let's say the two different opposite sides, were actually already discussing a bit. So they divide them into three groups and they ask them to think of a scenario of the good day, of a very good day for a teenager. So one group was doing the morning scenario, another group the afternoon, and the other group the evening scenario. So they had to work on making a scenario knowing that this will be a one film. So the morning will be after the afternoon and the evening. So it had to have a connection. And through working together on what was a good day and having to agree on technical aspect, working with the camera, then the atmosphere, and this is where the participatory video worked, is like, instead of tackling the conflict directly, they tackle it indirectly through making them working on a video. And that's a very concrete example I wanted to give to you because because what they said about the situation was that the atmosphere itself relaxed, and through having to work together on a topic, then they start tackling the topic of the conflict itself. So I'm back on this Be the Change MOOC. In the Be the Change MOOC, there is something called the toolbox, where we've shared actually tools on different situations. There is 3 scenario. As I told you, this Be the Change was with a combination of trainers that work with different methods. And here is the moment where the trainers have worked on 3 scenarios and try to give you tools of theater, participatory video, also workshop on how to tackle this different situation. So here, for example, we have the situation. I am starting a project with a group of people that don't know each other. How can I manage conflict or encourage positive conflict? And we are choosing the challenging option. And here, when you are on this and you click on this image, you have some scenario. So here was the cartography of an emotional city, which is also something I wanted to share with you, because on a WordCamp, there might be the situation that the conflict is about emotional level and about going through discussion, and bringing it back to something material, concrete, and technique can help. So the cartography of an emotional city is the idea to make a map of this place where you are, and to ask the people to put in different colors the place where they feel comfortable or not comfortable. And through these material, physical elements, to be able to discuss about the situation and understand what makes this place a comfort zone or not a comfort zone. I am not keeping that on because you can go on it later. And I wanted to share with you another one, which is here. So there is a conflict in the volunteer house. It divided the group in 2, each side defending their part. How do I support them to understand each other's point of view? Which I think is an example that can be very close to what you're experiencing in the WordCamps. And again, I'm focusing on the participatory video. So I'm showing it to you here. And this is a 4-shot perspective. It's something that is very simple and can also be used with teenagers, also with the phone. And it's very simple because you just need a phone with a camera. I know not everybody has a phone with a camera, but I believe on the WordCamp, you will find at least 1 or 2 persons that can have it. And it's enough, because it doesn't have to be everybody do the picture. The 4-shot perspective is really to help people, which is a basic in the conflict situation, to try to understand the point of view of the other person. So the idea behind the 4-shot perspective is to ask them, and you can give them a situation, for example, an educational activity that doesn't work, and you ask them to be either the trainers group or the participant group. Or if there is a conflict in the WordCamp, you can actually ask them to do it about the conflict itself by maybe switching role, having to do the 4-shot perspective from the perspective of the other. And the idea is they have to summarize the situation to give a glimpse of what's happening in only 4 images. No sound, no, I mean, they can do this little thingy on the GIF on the image, that's not a problem, but the idea is just 4 shots. And it's a starting point to first have to do the step in putting yourself in the shoes of the other person, and to support to start a discussion, because this is something I also experience a lot in conflict mediation. Most of the tool that you said about is communication. It's true, a lot of things are based on communication, but there is also some elements which is to bring it a concrete aspect, the same as the cartography, or here the 4-shot perspective, or working through participatory video, to give it a tangibility, something you can touch, is help to take a step back from the conflict and look at it from a different perspective. And when we talk about conflict on the WordCamp or conflict with teenagers, this is exactly what we are trying to do, to actually help them to see it from a different perspective. So this was the 2 elements I wanted to share with you about participatory video. I'm gonna now invite you to, we are gonna watch a 5-minute video to illustrate it. So during the Be the Change project, the participants were actually invited during one of the training to create their own participatory video. To create their own video. It took 2 days for people that didn't know how to do a video before. They did everything by themselves. And what is very interesting about the example we're going to show you, you will very quickly understand the topic. But what is interesting is in the group that created this film, they were not agreeing. I mean, they had different view on the topic, and they used the fact that they had different view in the film. So the film is actually representative of the conflict that was going, the disagreement that was going in the group. So I'm gonna switch off my camera and my microphone. I invite you also to use this time to write questions in the chat if you have some, and enjoy the viewing.
So blue, me pressing through. I can't forget the day we met. Your smile so bright, it made me swoon. Our love is like a summer's day, hot and endless in a magic way. Whenever I see you, all I can think is my summer love. Been waiting for you, my love. My summer love. Been waiting for you, my love. I can't forget the day we met. You looked so fly in your red Corvette. Your hair, your look, your everything. When I see it all, I knew that you were mine. I'm in love with your hair, your lips, your silhouette in the moonlight shine. With my love, you won't ever be alone. My summer love, been waiting for you, my love. Completely a fool, been waiting for you, my love. Head over heels, I'm blinded by what I feel. My love is forever yours. You have my heart, you have my soul, you have my whole, you have my control. Love me tender, love me sweet, with you I know that I'm complete. I'm in love with the summer's day, for you I'd give my life away. Never leave me, never let me go, my summer love. Been waiting for you, my love. My summer love, been waiting for you, my love. My love is forever yours. Forever yours, my love is forever yours.
And I am back. So I saw some of your questions. So this happened during the training about conflict management. So the participants were from different backgrounds. So the main character, the main character on this film was actually a participant that had never taken part in any training, any international activities before, and actually didn't really speak English much. So this whole scenario happened with trying to understand each other because he didn't really speak fluently English, not much. So this happened during the training. The idea was they were here to be trained about conflict management, but as I say, different profiles. Some people, that was the first training of their life, international training. Some people were camp leaders, some people coordinator, some people had never been in any kind of project like that. So these were the participants, and it took about 2 days. But again, we were here on a training about conflict management and about participatory video. So the idea was to make them really aware so that they could use the tool themselves after. So yes, I am aware that what I'm showing you is on a training where we also had 2 trainers that are specialists on participatory video. So this is not the same element that can happen if you use it on a WordCamp where yourself are not very familiar with it. But personally, I was not the trainer on participatory video. And after being on this training, I started using participatory video with the teenager I'm working locally, just making them doing something very simple with their camera, with their phone, and it works very well. You know, the idea of the 4-shot perspective is something very simple to start with. They just have to do it with images, and the image one after another also says a lot about the situation. You can keep writing question, and if there is, Simon will let me know and we will answer the other. You can also find these videos on YouTube, so it's also on the channel of Solidarité Jeunesse. There were 4 groups, so there were 4 different videos, and they could also be interesting to show on WordCamps themselves. So you have the Go Green, you have another one which is about gender, which is also an interesting one, and they also made it about a situation that could happen on a WordCamp, something that happened in a kitchen. Yes, the MOOC will be accessible once we will send you all the detail after this webinar. So now moving on to the second element that I wanted to share with you, the second tips for your work as a camp leader, it's about mediation. Of course, now we have about 15 minutes late. In 15 minutes, I do not plan to make all of you mediator. And actually, I do not have the time to ask you what is your experience in mediation, what you know, you don't know. So what I'm going to do is to share some tips that I thought could be useful for camp leader. For those who already know it, then that's going to be reminders. The first big reminder is when I start training about conflict mediation. Mediation is a posture that requires to be supporting other people in finding themselves the solution. And this is something that requires time and requires as well to be ready that the mediation does not work, because the idea is to give back to the people the decision and the power to solve or not their situation. So when being a camp leader or training your camp leader, this is something that for me has to be made clear, is that it's not because they are camp leader that they need to take the role of mediator, but if they take the role of mediator, then it needs to be clear that the mediator will support other people in finding their solution and not bringing the solution. If you have this attitude of bringing yourself the solution, then that's another role that's called arbitrary or negotiator, and that is also possible. So for me, the first element that I wanted to share is take time and commitment to support people, and it is about the personal choice to decide, do I put myself in a posture of mediator and helping the other in solving their conflict, or am I more here as a negotiator or an arbitrator? About that again, for the camp leaders, I'm gonna share with you again another element. Here. We have a whole section that is about a third-party intervention. So in this MOOC, there is a third-party intervention. And in this third-party intervention, as you can see here on the side, on the right side, one of the elements is comparing the different approach of third-party intervention. I am not going to show you the video now, but there is example that were done about a house coordinator that has to manage a conflict between 2 volunteers in the house, so very close to your situation. And it's also asking the people question about what do you think the person should do in this moment. And it's giving example here of what's the difference between putting yourself in an arbitrary role, meaning deciding for the people and taking the decision, and the mediation approach. So this is something I encourage you to make do with your coordinator and your camp leader, because this is a very simple exercise to make realize, like, what do I feel comfortable? What is the approach I usually do? And what it takes if I choose one or the other approach, what are the elements I want and need to have? So this was the first approach, and in this element as well, we have designed a graphic that helps you to see what makes a mediator, the mediator basic skills and ethics. Because as I said, of course, we are not training people to be mediator in 15 minutes, but there are some good tips that can help people to take the distance and to remember. So here we share ability to support people to find their own solution, and it's also simple tips as support people in distinguishing the emotions from the facts. So a third tool that I wanted to share with you about mediation in a training and in a work camp is a tool that we developed here. It's what I call the conflict staircase. It's this idea that conflict unravel through a staircase. So it go down, 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 deeper in the conflict. So you will see they created a funny video that show a situation and show how the situation gets worse and worse. And this is a conflict, the conflict staircase developed by Glassel. And it's the idea that, yes, in a conflict, there are certain stages that we go through and some indicator that can help you to know where you are in the conflict. So you will see in each slide, you have the video, and I'm going to cut the sound so we don't have the sound. I should have cut it. And if you look at it after, you have on the top right, you can see more elements of the situation. I mean, it explains you what is the stage. So stage 1, hardening of the situation, and how you can recognize the stage. And if I'm sharing that with you, it's because in the same line, we created another document that you will be able to download there, which is tips on how to go up the stairs. There are 9 stairs, and the idea is, okay, on the video, we know how to go down, but here in peak at the bottom, you have some little tips to help you how to go back up. And this is a tool I'm sharing a lot during the training on conflict mediation, because it's simple elements that help you to see, okay, we are here. This is one of the elements I can do. So you have it for all the steps, and starting from the step number 3, it's also the idea an external intervention might be necessary to support them in going back up the stairs. And this is also something interesting, I think, to share with the camp leaders, because this is the idea that sometimes as a camp leader, and even more as a camp leader on teenage work camp, we tend to take a lot on our shoulders, you know, to feel the weight of the responsibility of having a group dynamics that works well, on having the work camp that works well. And very often there is this attitude toward conflict of either running away from it or having the impression we need to be present all the time. And this idea of the staircase is giving you concrete element to focus on, to realize, should I intervene now, or can I let the people involved in the conflict try to solve it by themselves by just orientating some little tips? Because it is true that after the step 3, an external intervention might be necessary. But before that, then there might be other things that the camp leader can do to support the people in overcoming the conflict. So this was the elements I wanted to share with you about conflict mediation. Again, you will be able to find all that on the MOOC, so you can use this tool to transmit it to the people. So the element for the mediation was to help the people first decide, do I want to take a mediator role? And if I take it, remember that mediation is supporting other people in finding themselves the solution. And a very important role of a mediator is to support people in distinguishing what is the fact and what is the emotion felt about it. And this is very simple tool of reformulating, resending back what was said.
And thank you very much again, Leticia and Simon, for the webinar, for your time, for sharing all the information with us.
Thank you. So I'm wishing you a good rest of the day. For the people where it's evening, a good night. Thanks a lot for coming in the evening. For the people who are waking up early for us, thanks. For those who, like me, are in the middle of the day, thanks as well. So have a nice end of the day. You can leave when you want, and I hope to meet you someday, maybe.